Those who currently work in us federal government. What's these current mood like? HHS bleak. This mess has brought my team together as we are sharing memes and information through text, so that's nice. Despite what this administration thinks, all we want to do is our jobs. Help out our stakeholders, protect human and animal health, and provide service to the public. But we are now sitting in meetings having to decipher all of the memos and EOs and trying to prevent panic. Civil service can be demoralizing on a bad day, but this has gone above and beyond.
It sounds like you're in a tough spot, but finding some camaraderie through memes helps. It's good that your team is sticking together and focusing on your mission. Navigating those complicated memos must be frustrating. It's a lot to handle, but hopefully, you all can keep supporting each other through this. Just remember that you're doing important work, even when it feels overwhelming.
Despair. It sucks to be working hard and meeting all your performance goals, but the people you work for are convinced, with no evidence, that you are a lazy piece of shit. They've openly admitted to wanting to make us so miserable we quit, and it's like every day there is some crazy new idea for how to punish us. I'm having a hard time imagining living through the next 4 years of this, and I'm seriously depressed about it. I know someone is probably going to say, why don't you just quit? The problem is I actually love what I do and the small team I work with. It feels like a hostile takeover, and I'm in a highly specialized field that isn't going to be able to absorb the number of workers that will be looking for a job after all this.
That sounds really tough. It's hard to put in the effort and feel like it's all for nothing. Sticking with a job you love but facing that kind of negativity is a real challenge. It's frustrating when your contributions aren't recognized. I've seen good people get drained when management behaves that way. It's no surprise you're feeling down about it. Just remember that your skills matter, and staying true to what you love can pay off eventually.
I'm in the Air Force, and things seem to be changing every day. Whatever par for the course in the military. What isn't par for the course is how polarizing this has been on my social media. I made a lot of friends in my years. Half are like me and struggling with the thought of staying in. The other half are throwing full-blown, we're fucking back. Facebook posts out there. I've left a lot of the more cancerous Air Force-related Facebook pages recently.
It's interesting how the military life can create such different perspectives among friends. Some people thrive on the changes, while others feel uncertain about their future. I guess it shows how personal experiences shape our views. Stepping back from those toxic groups sounds like a smart move. Surrounding yourself with the right people can make a big difference in how you handle it all. Everyone has their own way of coping.
We've been under a hiring freeze since October due to the continuing resolution. We are so understaffed. They think we could do the same amount or more with even less employees? What a joke. We have had people complaining for years about how long everything takes with the SSA. It's about to get so much worse. I'm looking into a few certifications to make myself marketable in the event I'm let go. I don't see this ending well, but I'm not leaving voluntarily.
That sounds rough. The pressure of a hiring freeze and being understaffed can really take a toll. It's frustrating when management doesn't seem to understand the impact on workflow. Looking into certifications is a smart move, though. It's always good to have options. Hope things change for the better, but it's good you're preparing just in case.
My BAL has been perpetually stressed and incredibly angry since the election. He is insanely smart and will be okay, the public's loss. But the sad thing is we suspect a lot of his aunts, uncles, and possibly even parents voted for this. My wife and I wonder if he will eventually bail and take a job closer to where we live a few states away from DC.
It sounds like your brother-in-law is going through a tough time. It's hard to see someone you care about struggle like that, especially when family dynamics come into play. The idea of him moving closer might be a good change for him, though. Sometimes a fresh environment helps clear the mind and ease some of that stress. Hope he finds what's best for him.
I'm not a federal worker, but I'm friends with a couple who both work for the Forest Service. They just bought a house this summer after saving for many years. They do valuable work, essential for the local tourism industry, but aren't paid that much, especially compared to many other jobs in this HCOL rural area. They're very worried.
It's tough seeing friends work so hard for something and still stress about finances. They contribute a lot to the community, but it's frustrating when the pay doesn't reflect their efforts. I get it. Balancing work and living costs can really mess with someone's peace of mind. I hope they find a way to enjoy their new place without all that pressure hanging over them. It's important to have that space to relax.
Honestly, reading through all of this and everyone's support is really nice. He learned from his failures in the first round. Morale is in the toilet. Everyone is freaking out. Everyone's stressed, way more than normal. It's a rough time. The hiring freeze also affects internal hires. So we can't fill positions. Any selections and promotions are on hold. We are suffocating.
It sounds like a tough situation. When things get stressful at work, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. I remember when my friend faced a similar hiring freeze. The team was under pressure, and morale dropped. We tried to support each other by sharing small wins and keeping the communication open. It helped a bit, but the uncertainty lingered. Sometimes, all you can do is push through together.
My wife's pre-COVID facilities downsized due to work from home. They codified work from home because productivity rose. 1,000 people have to show up to a facility that houses 100 people next week. The government is only funded until March, so the payout is a ruse. My wife will now have a 1-5 HR commute to a facility where she has no workspace. We are looking to sell our house and move to get closer to her work. This is government efficiency at work.
That sounds frustrating. It's tough when companies change the way they operate without considering the impact on employees. Your wife's longer commute and the lack of workspace make it even harder. Selling your house to move closer seems like a big step, but it might be necessary. It's just a strange situation, especially with how things were before. Hopefully, things get sorted out for her soon.
Don't work in federal government just yet, but I'm in the interview phase of a federal job. It's actually really heartbreaking because the woman I'd be working for seemed very excited about me, but I'm almost positive I'm not getting that job now since they can't afford me anymore. Kind of the same with non-federal jobs that rely on federal funding. Got another interview rescheduled today because the department is scrambling as to whether they need to rescind my second interview. I'm almost done my PhD, and I've honed the hell out of a specialized skill set, so it's like, what do I do now? /edit, grammar /.
It sounds like you're in a tough spot. Going through interviews can be really stressful, especially when the funding situation is up in the air. It's hard when you've put in so much effort into your PhD and feel ready to move forward. Just remember that this situation isn't a reflection of your skills or potential. Keep pushing through and stay adaptable. Something else might come along.
During a particular hard time, when I couldn't do any more than I had, I thought to myself, what I've done has to be good enough. It just has to be. Take care of yourself, and thank you for what you did do. Some of the best times of my life have been in the wilderness, and I recognize it's been possible because of people like you.
I remember a time when I felt overwhelmed with everything going on. I kept telling myself that what I've done had to be enough. It wasn't easy, but eventually, I found peace in knowing I did my best. Reflecting on good times spent outdoors reminds me of the support I've had from friends. It's those moments that really mean something. Just simple times in nature that help ground us.
I still have a balance from the 2016 tax year because I was a kid and didn't understand what a 1099 was. What are the chances that it's getting collected on this year? A tax return would be nice. LOL. In all seriousness, I'm really thinking of all of you guys. Federal workers keep our lives smooth, and I hate that this is happening to you, and all of us.
I can relate to that tax confusion. I once missed a 1099 as well and ended up dealing with a mess later. It's easy to overlook things when you're not familiar with the process. I hope you can sort it out and maybe get that return. It's nice that you're thinking of federal workers too. They do play a big role in keeping things running smoothly.
When I send clients to our local SSA office, they sometimes complain about the wait. But they almost universally come back to sit down with me with their documents, or their parents' documents who they're trying to navigate filing taxes for after their parents have died or become incapacitated, and tell me about how once they were able to get into the office, the people that were so helpful to them made the process so painless and got them exactly what they needed. I don't know how often you guys get to hear it. You deserve to, and you don't deserve what's happening right now.
It's interesting how people often focus on the wait time at places like the SSA office. But once they get in, the experience can be surprisingly positive. I've seen it too. Clients share stories of helpful staff. It kind of shifts the perspective, right? It's easy to overlook the good when you're caught up in the negative. Sometimes, you just need to hear about the good side of things.
My daughter has a summer internship with one of the defense agencies that requires a really long and expensive security clearance, which is done. We'll see if they end up canceling it. One of her friends from last summer is part of a program where she got a 3-year scholarship with a promised job at the end. I wonder if she'll end up being able to not do her contracted years working for the government because of this mess. And again, the government has spent thousands on these security clearances. Husband took leave this week, specifically because he didn't want to deal with this mess. His poor adjutant.
That's a lot to handle. Security clearances can take forever, and it's frustrating for everyone involved. Your daughter's internship sounds promising, but it's tough to see friends impacted like that. It's interesting how these programs can change based on circumstances beyond control. Your husband taking leave makes sense. Sometimes you just need a break from all that stress. Hope everything works out for everyone involved.
I was trying to rejoin the AF reserves a couple years ago, but got medically disqualified. I'd be fine to stay in if I was still in, but I'm not qualified to rejoin after getting out. Go figure. I'm torn between feeling relief that I dodged a bullet and feeling regret that I'm not taking the bullet.
That sounds familiar. I had a similar situation with a job I wanted. Got through the interviews but ended up not getting the offer due to some issues in my background check. At first, I was bummed out. Later, I realized it might have saved me from a job that wasn't a good fit. It's strange how things work out like that sometimes. You just never know what's for the best.
Stay strong, brother or sister. Don't resign and don't feel resigned. Please don't let them fire you, and don't let them walk over you. You're rightfully mad. Not everything is about money and about politics. There are people like you that have a goal, and that goal is to make the world a little better, rather than to blindly fill up the pockets like the stupid oligarchs do, since that's all they know. Not everything is available to buy, and most of all, human spirit of determination and a higher goal.
I had a friend who worked really hard at a nonprofit. He faced constant pressure to meet financial targets, but he kept believing in the mission. It wasn't easy for him, and there were moments he felt like giving up. In the end, he chose to stick it out, focusing on the positive impact he could make. It wasn't about the money for him, but about helping others and staying true to his values.
It's weird how not-so-progressive countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh have had a woman in charge, Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, Sheikh Hasina, but the United States never has. Granted, they all had issues and were far from perfect. 2 of them were authoritarian, but they had enough support to lead. Of the other Anglosphere countries, New Zealand has had a few. Australia has had one. Canada had a woman prime minister, albeit very briefly. The UK, of course, had Margaret Thatcher, and a couple more recently, Theresa May and Liz Truss, I think. Ireland has never had a woman in charge. Only looking at heads of government, e.g. Prime Minister or Taoiseach for the Irish. Not head of state, but in the US the president serves as both.
It's interesting how leadership roles can differ across countries. Some places, like India and Pakistan, have had women in significant positions. Meanwhile, the US hasn't seen a woman president yet. You'd think with so many examples in other nations, it would have happened by now. Even in the UK and Canada, there have been female leaders. It makes you wonder about the dynamics and attitudes in politics overall.
It won't matter since we're going to all die soon anyways. I'm astonished by people's confidence in what is going to happen or not happen. As I've gotten older, I've learned to say I don't know about many things. For example, I'm reasonably certain that climate change is going to be very, very bad. At the same time, I don't know exactly how bad, when, where, or how it will impact my life. And even in catastrophe, a lot of people manage to live worthwhile lives under bleak circumstances. Another thing I've learned as an anxious person, yeah, bad things will happen, and probably not the ones I thought of. I'm not that smart. I'm probably over-preparing for the wrong things. It's better to be flexible than to be certain, and certainly wrong.
I get what you mean. It's easy to think we know what will happen next, but life's unpredictable. I've had similar thoughts about worrying too much. One time, I spent weeks planning for a big emergency, only for it to be a regular day. It taught me to be more adaptable. Now, I try to embrace uncertainty instead of stressing over what I can't control. It's more freeing that way.
I'm not going anywhere, and I truly appreciate everyone's support. Not just for me, but for federal employees in general. It might seem trivial to some, but seeing folks outside the federal government commenting here has real and tangible effects. Colleagues in my agency and those from many other agencies are some of the hardest working, passionate people I know. I'm thankful to have my job and proud of the work I do. Not one day goes by where I regret taking my oath of office.
It's nice to see appreciation for hard work. My friend works for the government and often talks about the challenges and rewards. They really believe in what they do. It's tough out there, but seeing support like this helps a lot. I get that feeling of pride from having a job that matters. It can bring people together, even when things get rough.
We'll check the social against what the name control should be. When it doesn't match, an error will pop up on the computer system. The scary thing is I don't know what the attrition rate will be for workers, and therefore, how bad it will get. A coworker told me about a return that took 43 years to process from 1979 to 2023. The TP died in the meanwhile. Unsurprisingly, if, by the grace of God, everyone files perfectly, there will be an improvement in service. Or you may be waiting till 2026 to get your 2024 tax return. I honestly would be worse than guessing if I attempted to tell you anything. I feel like I owe the people an apology. You all deserve better than this.
It's kind of wild how some processes just drag on forever. A friend once waited years for a refund, and by the time it came through, they had already forgotten about it. It's frustrating to think how systems can fail people like that. Seems like there's no clear fix either. The uncertainty must weigh on everyone involved, especially when it seems like things just get more complicated.
Also, I don't know about other parts of the country, but I've been going to the DMV since the early 90s, and it's nothing too outrageous. Yeah, you take a number and wait your turn. Is that really too much to bear for some people? I haven't been since during the whole COVID shutdown era, and at least back then you went online and made an appointment and got seen at your appointed time. Man shrugging, medium light skin tone.
I remember going to the DMV a few years back. I got there early, thinking I'd beat the crowd, but ended up waiting anyway. Just sitting there, listening to everyone complain. It's just how it goes, right? At least when they started the online appointments, things got a bit better. Still, it's just a waiting game. You deal with it and move on.
Private industry is far more efficient than government. I hate it when people say this. They obviously haven't actually paid attention to where they slash their friends are working. Even smaller companies can have inefficient, stupid shit, but once you get large, the private sector can be inefficient as hell. A company I worked for lost over a dozen cars. We were still leasing them, paying for them monthly, but didn't know who was using them or where they were. Thousands of dollars lost every month just from that.
I get where you're coming from. I remember at a job, we had this whole mess with equipment. We couldn't find our laptops for weeks. Turns out they were just sitting in a storage room, collecting dust. My boss kept saying how efficient we were, but it just felt chaotic. It's funny how people love to point fingers at government, but ignore the same issues in their own backyard.
To be honest, I've always hated thinking of money in terms of salary in the US. The amount of money someone makes in a year often feels like it's misleading. Like, you'll often see people in the trades talk about their pay as if guaranteed overtime is something wonderful. As if my job pays well as long as I work 60-hour weeks is a good thing. Add to that the fact that time off is usually laughable, benefits often lacking, and how high baseline expenses are, and it starts feeling like jobs that pay well just see it as the cost of abusing you.
That makes sense. I get what you're saying about salary being misleading. I've seen friends take jobs that sound good on paper, but then they end up working crazy hours just to make ends meet. It's frustrating when benefits are lacking, and you can hardly take time off. It's like you're hustling just to keep up with the bills, but is that really living? Feels more like grinding.
What I've been saying, and what I've mentioned to my boss is, let's pretend that they do pay. Let's pretend you take the severance package, and you get paid until September, right? Do you really think the economy is going to be doing well 8 months from now? We're only a week into these shenanigans. Who is going to be hiring 8 months from now?
It's tough to think ahead when the economy feels so unpredictable. I had a friend go through something similar. He got laid off and thought the job market would bounce back fast. Months later, he still struggled to find work. It made him rethink his plans and go back to school. Sometimes you just have to adapt, even when it feels uncertain.
I worked for a company that had a remote warehouse full of millions of dollars worth of equipment, which had been ordered for a project where it turned out it wouldn't work for the intended purpose. So they were paying to lease the storage for equipment that they couldn't use and would never be able to use on another project. It was obsolete for new projects by the time I found out about it. The company was bought by an even larger company, and the odds of them even noticing the total losses at the corporate level other than a minor line item on the books was negligible.
That sounds like a tough situation. It's wild to think about all that money tied up in gear that just sits there. Your role must have felt pretty pointless at that point. It's kind of surprising how these big companies sometimes overlook these massive losses. Makes you wonder how often this kind of thing happens in larger corporations. Just another day in the business world, I guess.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.